it is time to go to the football. Let's start the Etihad. Yesterday's final game of the weekend, possibly season-defining. For your boys, Rory Smith. Manchester City 0, Liverpool 2. But from the very beginning, Pep was just like, we are going to go for this. It was City of old, tried to blow the barn doors off early. This City, watching them, trying to open with ferocity. Doku, Savinho, double U, at every opportunity. You don't think, God, this is amazing. You think, God, City's vulnerability, them attacking at speed, the high line, leaving all that space behind for Salah to run into. It's like dog owners amongst us. We just know if you leave a steak on a table and that table is low enough for your dog to reach and get that steak, we know where that steak ends up. And in a battle particularly between the Egyptian Prince Marmoush and the Egyptian King, you knew there'd only be one winner. God bless Salah. Every week, a different record, we say that, and on 15 minutes... Raw, that corner must have been well received in your home. It was like an NBA inbounds play. Joe Mazzulla ball, McAllister, low drive, flicked artfully back from the front post by Szoboszlai to the, how was he in so much free space, Mo Salah? City, honestly, in a body bag before he pulled his foot back, went in off, I think, an Ake deflection. Raw, 30 goals, 20 assists, 50th goal involvement for Big Mo, 9 in his last 8 in all games. I mean, to do that in the extreme business end of the season is human transcendence.
Yeah, he's in a wonderful moment of form. I think he is. There is an argument that and not a particularly difficult one to make, that the difference basically between Liverpool and Arsenal this season is, one, injuries, which Arsenal have had more than Liverpool, and two, Mo Salah. That Salah is a world-class player having a seismic kind of legacy-defining season. And that is proving the difference between two otherwise relatively well-matched teams. And again, he was the difference maker here. And I mean, look, the finish was scruffed a little bit, and the deflection was kind of responsible. But it was a well-worked goal, and it was actually a little kind of nod to one of Liverpool's weaknesses recently, which has been set pieces. They're not great from set pieces. They've not scored many from set pieces. But this one, a routine stolen from Bournemouth, I think. The first Bournemouth goal against Arsenal a few months ago was this routine, executed a bit better by Bournemouth, admittedly. But Liverpool will take it.
God, yeah, the commentator said that too. Slot afterwards. Slot does not currently have a set-piece coach. I think they're incoming. And they said, stolen from Bournemouth. And Slot's like eyes crinkled as if he'd been like a comedian ripping off another comedian's joke. And he was like, oh, yeah, I know that goal. Yeah, but we didn't take it from them. We just, it was just really,
completely different.
It was amazing. You know, he sounded in that moment a bit like Cole Palmer's trademark lawyer. Just being like, yeah, you can trademark anything. You don't even have to create it, man. But God bless, how would City respond? That was the question. Nathan Ake had actually talked during the week, quite honestly and beautifully, talked about a lack of fortitude after the club were flung out of the Champions League. Said the unprecedented number of defeats. This is where we are. For Manchester City under Pep Guardiola are taking a toll. Almost the leitmotif of City's season is a lack of resilience, which is hard to even begin to fathom. And now they had to play. Now they had to try and enforce themselves. And Liverpool were just content to sit there, coil on the counter, to which the warning signs were so very, very evident. Long before Salah struck again. This time as creator, sprung by Trent Alexander-Arnold. And Mo did that thing that he loves to do, to taunt, to frolic, to dance through or around 3 City players. I credit him again. I think this is the second week on the run that he's cut inside and resisted the urge to lash it, as he so often does, rolled the ball to Szoboszlai. What a force he's been in his back third of the season. And my God, rolled home through a poor Kuzanov. Kuzanov, if you're old enough to remember the Muppets, he's almost the Beaker of Premier League football. God, what a finish. Transcendent football. Honestly, I'm watching it. I come to, bury Liverpool, but can only praise them. Again, we have to talk about Mo. Premier League assist record is 20. I think Mo is he 4 assists off that with so much football to go. He's now both scored and assisted a goal in 11 different Premier League games. Previous competitive record was 7. I mean, Eden Hazard, who was seen as a great, did that 10 times in his whole career. Mo has done it 11 times this season. This is not just good football or great football. This is, to me, and you may laugh at me, Raw, for being a little hyperbolic, which is, not my style. This is Messi and Ronaldo levels of football, but without the celebrity hype and brand infrastructure. Seems like Mo does his own tweets after the game. But this is a man changing every single game he plays in, week out, consistently, title defining. It's always him, the involvement, almost treating every moment on that field like a contract negotiation.
Yeah, it is. I'd stop short of saying it's Messi and Ronaldo levels, but it is an astonishing level of output from Salah this season. And there is a curious kind of unwillingness to acknowledge that you see.
I know. Why would you downgrade it, though?
Well, I don't know. Do you know, I've been really fascinated by this, Rog, recently. I think there's a desire to downgrade almost everything. And a little bit of it you can attribute to kind of tribal defensiveness, that you don't want to praise your opponent's star player, or you don't want to, praise the star player of a team that you dislike. And I get that. So I get why Chelsea fans would always say, well, Hazard was a better player than Salah. That's completely natural. Don't have a problem with it. But I find it really odd that Salah is producing this season, which is by anyone's measure an all-time Premier League great season, which isn't to say it's the best season anyone's ever had in the Premier League, but it is to say that it kind of belongs in that conversation. You could make a case for it. That doesn't feel a controversial position to take. And yet there is this desire to kind of say, well, no, he doesn't do this or he doesn't do that. And there are times when Salah looks a slightly scruffy footballer. His first touch isn't always perfect. But do you know, that wasn't true of Thierry Henry either. That if you actually watched Thierry Henry, sometimes he miscontrolled the ball because he's a human being. And I don't really understand where this urge to downgrade everything originates, or kind of what purpose it serves to kind of pretend that. There was a lot of stuff after the game on Sunday that Liverpool aren't anything special. It's just that everyone else is terrible. And you think, well, do you know what? If I was a Chelsea fan or a Tottenham fan or an Arsenal fan or a City fan, I would want to believe that Liverpool are a really good team. I wouldn't want to think my team had been beaten by some mediocrities. That would strike me as being weird. And it does seem a very odd impulse to immediately kind of deny Salah the credit that he very obviously deserves. I don't know whether it's just social media encourages people to be contrarian to such an extent that it's now a reflex. That is maybe my best guess.
There's smarter people than me will understand this stuff. It's almost like a cultural construct that we enforce on our footballers. Like, they have to be incredible on the field, and they have to be global brand magnets, billboards off it. They also have to be in the club. They have to be desired. I mean, Mo's a very fascinating character. No one loves shirtlessness, the state of shirtlessness, more than 32-year-old Mo Salah now. Not even Cristiano Ronaldo right now enjoys preening topless. But there is he's not in the club. I think he went to Blackpool Fun Fair, which is like the Jersey Shore last week. That was one of his visits. I mean, I think there's the fact that, again, smarter people than me who understand the cultural construct that is Mo Salah. There's something about him, playing for Egypt, who are a force in AFCON football, but are not winning the World Cup anytime soon. Argentina, Portugal for Messi and Ronaldo. One has won the World Cup, one has come very, very close and coached a Euros winning team from the sideline. So there's all kinds of elements that go into it, but I think there's something about him. Every single goal tumbles a record in, yet the global respect, that global halo. Man has aura. That's what I don't understand. He has his own bloody singular aura. But City, we'll get back to Liverpool in a minute. They had, I think, lost just 2 of the last 42 games at the Etihad now. Bonnie Renee wrote this recently, that they look like a team almost haunted by the ghost of itself. A team attempting to show it still got it. Symbol of that was 33-year-old Kevin De Bruyne, who looked to me like the epitome of a man who knows that dagger of a phrase that the footballers left him, which is a raging battle against time that you can never win. I guess unless you're 32-year-old Mo Salah, apparently. Right at half-time, KDB cut inside, pulled his foot back to smite all comers, and just saw the ball fly recklessly out of control, almost out for a throw-in. It was honestly, it was like watching Manchester City's entire season in a 2-second highlight reel. Roy, it's hard to watch Kevin De Bruyne, a great, suddenly displaying the existential agony of your average White Lotus guest.
I wrote a piece a few months ago about Salah and De Bruyne and how hard it can be for clubs to gamble on players of that age and whether to give them a new contract. And obviously Salah is the the more high-profile example because of the season he's having. But De Bruyne's contract's up in the summer as well, and it is odd, I think, to think that he will leave Manchester City for nothing. He will walk away, may well be to the US. I personally feel that Kevin De Bruyne's colouring suits itself more to a kind of Minnesota United than to Saudi Arabia. I don't want to kind of typecast, but he's going to get sunburnt in Saudi Arabia. That's going to be a problem for Kev. He's going to need a lot of suntan.
He's going Baywatch. He's going San Diego, baby.
San Diego again. As long as he creams up, don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, but I think his agent's working on a what do you call it there? The piz.
Piz Buin.
I'll have a pint of Piz Buin, please, Kev, on that SPF 100, even as we speak.
100 and more. But it is the argument I made then was that De Bruyne, when fit, and obviously the difference between Salah and De Bruyne is that De Bruyne has had a litany of injuries through his career. Salah's had this remarkable ability to avoid injury. De Bruyne hasn't, and they seem to have taken their toll. When fit, De Bruyne is still a marvellous football player, capable of doing astonishing things, but he does seem to have been in some way diminished, I think, by the need to try and rescue Manchester City from what has happened over the last 4 or 5 months, that he seems to have felt that quite keenly. And it seems to have inhibited his performances because he looked anxious and hurried and uncertain yesterday in a way that I haven't really seen De Bruyne before.
Second half, a lot of City just trying to create a gesture at resistance. Doku, Savinho, Marmoush running into traps. I do want to highlight for all of Liverpool's flow. Also, what impressed me the most about this completely controlled performance was really the clean sheet. The organisation, the commitment, Diaz back in his area making big tackles, Salah covering over by his own corner flag. Zero mistakes, no complacency, no lack of focus. They controlled this game. They totally dominated City. Haalandless City, yes, but with their 2 number 10s and just 34% possession. This was also a defensive masterclass rule. Alisson had almost nothing to do.
Yeah, and that's really significant. I think in the last few years, we've got used to games between the elite teams in the Premier League and the elite teams in Europe being slugfests. Effectively, it's you throw a haymaker, I'll throw a haymaker. Let's see what we've got, and it's made for wonderful entertainment, and no one's complaining. But there was an era where the mark of a championship winning team or a championship contending team was the ability to go away to an extremely difficult ground, a hugely intimidating opponent, even one that's diminished and wounded like Manchester City, and produce a display of consummate professionalism. And it wasn't spectacular, and to be honest, it wasn't always great to watch, but it got the job done. You took your chances when they came along. You were ruthless and you were effective. And they are the 2 words you'd use to describe Liverpool yesterday. They didn't look brilliant. It wasn't a free-flowing performance. And I think to an extent, this is one of the reasons why this Liverpool is being kind of dismissed as not being up to the standards of the imagined standards of previous champions. It's because those traits, one, don't play especially well on social media, that you can't clip them up and make a TikTok out of them. And 2, they've been lost a bit in the last 10 years where that Klopp style of kind of deafening, percussive football has become the hallmark of the games between the elite. We've actually forgotten that there was a period and there is a skill in producing something a little bit more subtle, a little bit more of a connoisseur's choice. The triangle that dominated these games in years gone by obviously was Mane, Firmino, Salah, and City's equivalent attacking triangle, whoever might have been in it, including Riyad Mahrez. It's part of the game. The triangle that dominated this game was Alisson, Van Dijk, Konate.
If Arne Slot's Brain Trust is listening, all you need after one of these games is for him to look into the camera and just go, boom! And ultimately everyone will say it's one of the greatest Liverpool teams ever. But let's talk City first. An agonising 14th defeat of the season for Pep Guardiola. 12, I think, was his record before this. But Man City, again, this is a City who recently toyed with invincibility, inevitability. They were controlled. Honestly, they were neutered before their own fans. That's despite the $200 million plus rebuild in January. God, can you imagine how it would have been without that? But Pep lost inside a week to both Real Madrid and now to Liverpool. His 2, I'd say, nemesis. And that will be an agony for him. By the way, I've got to credit him very quickly for trying post-game. The 2 arms on Salah's shoulders, the thrown back head laugh, the same trick he did at full-time with Cole Palmer. where he chats to a great player, opposing player post-game, and almost steals your soul. We'll see if it works again, Will.
That is part of the technique. There were images of Guardiola talking to Salah in the tunnel after the game as well. I think one thing that always gets lost is how well all these people know each other. You know, that they might be on opposing teams, but Pep Guardiola and Mohamed Salah will have a relationship. They will know each other. They might not consider themselves friends, Rog, but they'll be work colleagues. And it's why you quite often see, as players come off the pitch at the end of games, you see people that you wouldn't have ever put together having a chat, and it's because they move in similar circles. They'll have friends in common. They might go to the same restaurants. They might go, maybe not Guardiola and Salah go to the same nightclubs, but they will have elements of their lives that touch, and they will know each other, and I think in that case respect each other.
It's ultimately what stopped me from becoming an elite professional footballer, Roy. I'm just not very good at small talk.
There's a lot of small talk in being a footballer. I thought it was the other thing that I thought was fascinating.
I also don't. I get sore arm doing that. The football chat.
Well, so that's what I was going to say. That there was a really interesting shot immediately after the game yesterday, and I presume it aired in the States as well. It certainly aired here, of Salah talking to Marmoush, and what was striking was they weren't covering their mouths, and I presume they weren't covering their mouths because they were speaking in Arabic, which is what two Egyptians would speak to each other in. They wouldn't no reason to speak to each other in English. And at one point, it was almost as though Salah realised, hang on, these images go around the world. They'll be able to lip read us in Arabic because they're being broadcast to the Arabic channels. Just as the cameraman is from Sky, doesn't mean that image isn't going everywhere. And he had this sort of semi-panicked look on his face and went like that to clamp over his mouth. You're never safe, Mo. You're never safe.
Yeah, I do actually speak Arabic, and what he said to Marmoush is, these idiots are getting excited because we're not speaking with our hands over our mouths, but when they do translate the Arabic, we're giving them nothing. That is the control that Mo exerts over our psyches.
He might have been trying to explain to Marmoush how to only dream positively.
Yeah, he said, or he may have been saying, at the end of your arm, you've got this thing called your hand, and what you need to do is do this. By the way, speak like this off the field too. Make it a norm in life in general. Let's all walk around like this. You never do now. I'm starting to sound like Alex Jones, surveillance state, but let's get back to the football. Liverpool, bloody impressive, utterly in control. No Liverpool player had ever won before in the league at City. But I've got to say, this is the totem of how Arne Slot's arrival has changed everything. First league victory at the Etihad since 2015. Really a momentous victory in this title race. 11 games to go, 11 points clear. Yes, one more game played than Arsenal, but 7 home games to come. They're unbeaten on the road too. Rory, it would take an epic collapse for this team. Losers just wants this season to blows. Liverpool can even let it slip in Stevie Gerrard's words and somehow easily still win this one. Is the title wrapped in February?
No. And again, as much as I'm surprised by the desire to kind of downgrade how good Liverpool and Salah might be, I'm also slightly surprised that everyone's so keen to declare that the Championship is finished. Should we not enjoy the season as a whole? It feels a shame to kind of prematurely kind of declare this one's over, let's move on to the next. I think it's related to kind of the overall kind of pitch of hyperbole that we now follow football with, that every result has to mean something entirely conclusive, and everything has to be awarded every week almost. And I'm keen to resist that. Liverpool, yes, it would now take a fairly spectacular collapse for Liverpool not to win the league, but that's not entirely impossible. They've still got several tricky games to come. They've got, and look, there's an element here of kind of fan not wanting to tempt fate, and I will freely admit that. 11 points is a lot. It would take a big collapse. But, at the same time, if Van Dijk and Salah got injured, there's no reason to believe it wouldn't happen. That's maybe the one thing.
It's the injuries, right?
Yeah, it's injuries and it's fatigue. And I think more likely, the bigger threat, really, than Liverpool suddenly losing lots and lots of games all at once is an element of a death by 1,000 cuts. That, 2 or 3 draws unexpectedly maybe changes the outlook of the title race. The one thing that, even as a negative sort of not tempting fate fan, I would say is I don't think Arsenal will not drop any points from here. And that is the one thing that maybe means that, barring something quite spectacular, Liverpool should eventually win the league. Yeah,
there was that moment when Curtis Jones scored, ultimately ruled offside, but he just, watch that clip again, he just walked up to the Liverpool travelling fans. He went, He just like went, yeah. He didn't even shout it. It wasn't like an emotion. He just went kind of like, yeah. And his eyes, he kind of communed with the fans. I've watched it about a dozen times. Yeah. I felt like he knew in that moment that was the moment that they had the title won. And the fans responded, started to sing, and now you're going to believe us. We're going to win the league. I love it when you say people saying that. Yes, the Liverpool fans singing it, actually. And they sang it at the Etihad, which must have felt so powerfully magical for them. They know it. They feel it, that this is done. As you say, barring catastrophic injuries.
It's quite an interesting psychology of that song, I think, because, as you will know, Rod, winning the league was a bit of a thing for Liverpool for quite a long time. They didn't do it for ages, and they got quite obsessed with it. And I remember in 2020, just before lockdown and the pandemic and everything got delayed, Liverpool beat Manchester United 2-0 at Anfield. And it was a really nervy game. Liverpool were much better than United, and Salah scored in the last minute or the 88th minute or something from a long kick from Alisson. And it was only then, and I think at that stage Liverpool had gone about 18, 20 points clear. They were out of sight. They were over the hills and far away. The Kop started to sing it. And it felt like a real release, because it was the moment at which the people who were in the stadium, who were the best people qualified to judge the momentum of a season, I think, they decided, look, we are good enough to do this. We believe in ourselves. We believe in this team. We will see it through. Liverpool have been clear at the top for quite a while now this season, and the fans have not sung it. They've started to in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
They sang it at Goodison Park.
They sang it at Goodison Park and got their comeuppance. It's still a bit early for me, if I'm honest. I believe very strongly in hubris, but I think if they're singing it, it's a sign that they believe, okay, now, the league that exists and the fixtures that remain, this should get done.
Well, I think they know, because it's not over till the fat lady sings. It's not over until Curtis Jones says, yeah.
Do you think I can get that noise made into a ringtone?
I think so. Me doing
No, you doing it. I just like every time I get a text, it just goes, you.
I hope that's the sound that Liverpool fans remember when you're in like 50 years' time. Do you remember when we won the league in like 2020? Yeah. God.